Hello and welcome back to Darkstorm Rising. You catch me mid-plotting for my next Call of Cthulhu campaign, but that isn't why you're here. Today we're going to paint some green skins. Yep, we're going to do an Ork Warboss. I'm going to try and give you some nice vibrant skin tones, but at the same time some nice gritty armour, and to make him look the Warboss he needs to be. Arr, angry. Well, there's only one place to go really, and that's to the table. So here's our Warboss of choice. You may recognise the figure. Obviously I've done a little bit of converting on this guy, and I'm hoping you'll like the finished product. What we'll do first is I think we'll just give him a little bit of a dry brush just so we can highlight where everything is, so we can see him a little bit better on film. I've literally just poured some light grey onto a bit of kitchen towel, and we'll work it in so that it's not actually a complete dry brush. There's quite a lot of moisture still in there, and we'll just give it a little bit of stroke just so we can highlight and see a little bit better what it is we're painting here. I think that gives us enough relief there that we can start to see a little bit better what's going on. Right, okay, we'll get the brush clean. So that's a little bit clearer to see. Right, first thing we're going to do, I think we're going to set some skin tones, and for that, the background I'm going to go for is a shade colour Tyrant Blue by Citadel. I'm not actually interested in starting the skin yet. What I'm doing is setting off, just painting the skin first and setting the shades, because the first thing we're going to do is I like to work from the recesses out. So we'll do all his trousers and his loincloth and stuff like that first, but I thought we may as well get the base layer of the flesh on, a little bit of darkness in there, and we've just got to pick out all of his musculature and just like just a dose of blue all over him. I'll work around that and come back. Okay, I've prepared a couple of colours on the palette. There's the Evil Red, which is the purple colour in the background, and the Velvet Red, which is an express colour, and that's in the foreground. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick out where I want to go red with the Evil Red. I've already started on his loincloth, and I'm just going to go back in and just touch up. This will also set the shade tones, so I'm quite liberal covering. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the model and I'm going to pick out a few areas that I wish to do in red, and then I shall come back once I've decided which areas I want to do, and then I'll come back and I'll show you. Okay, so it's a little hard to make out where the red is because it is such a subtle colour at the moment. But we've got the loincloth, the front plate, the shoulder pad, a couple of the fangs, and the main part of the axe. I've chosen a few areas not to go red. You'll see that evolve with time. I've just had a little cunning idea for a few warning signs on there, but let's crack on with the skin. So I'm going to go back to Uniform Green by Vallejo. And I'm going to mix it with a tiny bit of Huldra Blue from scale 75. I'll get a little bit of that on the palette. And we're just going to reinforce the shade. So a bit of green, a bit of blue, just until we get a nice rich dark colour. And then we just very gently going to pick out all the dark areas. And work our way around the model. So there aren't a great deal of areas to cover. You just have to work our way around the model, just gently catching all those areas. Just getting into the recess of the muscles. And then we shall move on to the next layer. So now we've done that, that's given us a good amount of dark shading. We're going to back to the uniform green itself. We're going to pick out slightly higher areas. Start to be a little bit more specific with where our brush is going. The muscle tone, we'll just catch a little bit of, leaving the back end here dark, where the muscle is actually deepest, and as we come to the front of the muscle, we're more likely to catch, we'll brighten it up, upper surface of this muscle here, and then along the edge of that muscle there. And then the fingers, if you look at the edges of them, what we'll try and do is we'll catch a little dot towards each knuckle, and on the next knuckle down. We'll catch the thumb, and then we'll move around the corner and catch the tips of the fingers, ignoring the nails. And we'll do the same on the other hand. There is a little bit of skin just showing from the back here, and then we'll just gently touch wherever light would catch. And just work our way around the model. There's not a lot of skin to see, but what we're going to do is try and make it pop so it really stands out on the model. Right, just the other hand to do. Our next colour is going to be some golden olive, which I've already got on the palette. And again, we're going to touch over all the skin tones, this time a little layer higher. Just really covering some of the ground we've already done already. And just giving some more depth to those tones, and then exactly the same with the muscle, but just a little bit less than we were doing before. And on the fingers, just re-emphasising the knuckles, giving them a bit more colour. Touching on the tips of the knuckle again. Starting to get a bit more depth in the colour now. We've now added a little bit of lime green to the palette, and again we're going to brighten those areas up. Again, we'll work on the biceps and brighten them as well. And then finally the fingertips before we work the way around the model. It's hard to get an angle for you to see very well here, but just catch the tops of the palm. Edge of the thumb, and then we'll just go on to edges of the fingertips. And the knuckles. And we'll repeat that on the other muscle tones around the body. Next, just to add a little depth to the skin tones, we're going to get some cardinal purple. And that's going to go around the mouth area and onto the knuckles. If there are any sort of knees visible, we'd probably go onto the knees as well. And then around those areas where we've placed the red, we're going to get a little bit of the olive green that we used and a tiny bit of basic skin tone. And just revisit where we've just made red. And just try and dot it on and stipple it on rather than actually a line. And just basically outline the edge of the mouth. And we'll go and revisit the knuckles. And then we might, just with that same colour, just catch some extreme highlighting where the sun would really just catch the edges. And now we just need to fill in his teeth and his eyes. His tongue isn't really visible, but what we can see of it, we're going to do an initial coat of velvet red. While it's wet, still touch it with scarlet blood, and then get some highlights in there with squid pink, I've got those colours ready. Here's the scarlet, oh sorry, the velvet red, which that's going to go all the way inside the mouth and just give that general appearance of redness to the whole of the mouth. Just catch the insides of the gums as well. It's a bit hard to get the angle again for you. So that's the first colour applied in the mouth. Now we'll move over to the scarlet blood. We'll try to catch just the edges of the tongue with that. And now you should be able to see a little bit of definition appearing on the tongue. We'll then mix some of the red with the squid pink. Just to give a little bit of highlight colour on the edge of the tongue. And finally, a couple of dots of just the squid pink. Right near the tip. Oh. Just so you can see the tongue in the mouth there. And now we'll do the teeth. So the teeth are going to be an initial coat of stone grey, followed by bone white. So we're going to be very gentle and careful with these. You just need to try and get an angle so that you can see well. And then just run the paint onto each of his teeth. We'll do the bottom jaw as well. And then we'll move on to the bone white and just catch the very tips of those teeth. We certainly know this chap's not been near any Colgate, so we don't need to get them too clean for him. Okay, so I'm going to get a bit of Army Painter's strong tone and red tone, mix the two together. And we'll just pop that around his gum line. It'll re-highlight the teeth for us and just gives a little bit more definition. And you'll see it happen instantaneously as soon as I drop it around the gum line. And then finally, we'll just catch the very edge of his bottom lip. And just give it a little bit of definition. There we go. Okay, now to revisit the red on the armour. So we already had our velvet red, and we also had some of the scarlet blood, and we'll mix a bit of that together over here. And we're going to just rework all of the red that we've done already and start to work towards the edges, bringing a bit of vibrancy to the colour. This works as a very wet paint, you know, quite runny, so just to go steady with it. And it just wants to be touching, highlighted areas a little. Again, this model's quite hard to get camera views of some of the parts because it's some that's quite recessed. So just building up the colour and just avoiding the deepest of shadows. And again, on the axe where we've gone for some red, we now start to work in some nice bright colours. This being our first layer of transition. And we'll work our way around the rest of the axe and some of the other pieces and just give those a bit of colour, and I'll come back. For the shoulder area, I'm using a little bit more of a stipple technique. It's still giving coverage, but it's just a little bit more stippled, and then we'll leave it to dry. And it will just give it a bit. I want the paint to look broken when I'm actually done. I don't want it to look like a mint paint job. So I'm trying to already establish that sort of mood on the armour. Right, once it's had a chance to dry, I'll come back. Scarlet blood on its own. For the clothing, we will just slowly work it along the edge of any highlight, starting to bring a bit of colour into the cloth. Or even a bit more colour into the cloth. And then on the armour, trying to get that like damaged, broken look to it. What we'll do is we'll have an area of high colour. We'll leave a little broken gap, and we'll do a little bit further along. And just try and keep these areas slightly broken, and the differences in lengths of coverage just minimally altered, so that it does look like there's a little bit of a definition break between them. And then we'll also go back in with some metallics to show some breakthrough of the metal underneath itself from various bits of damage and stuff later. if you just think you need a bit brighter colour somewhere, just just redefine it. So we'll continue our way around the model, same technique, and just bearing in mind, like when we're talking about light coming from an upper surface, we'll try and go for a brighter red in the upper areas, and just try and reinforce where the colour is coming from. But I'm still trying to impress that idea of broken patterns on the paintwork. Anyway, I'll carry on. I'll finish off and I'll come back when I've got to a point where I'm happy. Right, so we've been over all the model now with a bit of extra red. You can see there are like darker areas where there's going to be damage later developed. There's bright red areas, but we're going to push that red even further by doing a second coat. And it is just literally stippling on again, reinforcing where you want to just get a little bit more emphasis of light. And you can see from that, if I compare it to the other side, we're already starting to just push those colours through. And I'm going to work around the rest of the model, just pushing the colours. We'll do the robes as well, and then we'll start on the next bit. Right, we're going to swap over to some Evilson Scarlet now, and we'll just re-pick out little bits of aspect. And then as a final touch, so that's we're currently using Evilson Scout by Citadel, and then we're going to Wild Rider Red, which is the next colour. And I'll work on that same part of the model. And what we'll do is we'll just go back in. And just reinforce that damaged look. And then what we'll do is we'll get a little bit of these little suns, and I've mixed it with a tiny little bit of the basic skin tone that we were working with earlier, and then I'll just gently dab highlights onto the upper surface edges. Right, now to try and get on some battle damage. So for battle damage, I'm going to choose a mixture of Violet Tide, Lead Belcher and Runefang Steel. I'm going to show you on the part of the model we've just been painting, and then I'll work my way around the model and see whether or not we can finish the battle damage off around the model. So where I'm looking at, there are little dinks in the armour. You can see they've deliberately cast damage. I'm just going to run some Violet Tide into those areas where I've managed to catch a little bit of paint, and just dab a little along the edge. And then we're going to go back in with the Lead Belcher and working on the edge, just to gently tap along the edge, just here and there, so it can show that there has been some wear and damage on this equipment, weapon. And then just underneath the edge of where I've just placed that last scratch, just to re-emphasise we'll just put some Rhinox hide under the edge just to emphasise where that damage is. And then, with a tiny little bit of the Runefang steel, we'll just re-emphasise tiny portions just to give it a little bit more highlight. And I'll work my way around the model and we'll see what it looks like when we're done. So just to re-emphasise, I've mixed a little bit of black in with the Rhinox hide. I wasn't quite happy with how dark it was. And then where you want some scratches, like on this top surface that would probably catch quite a bit of wear, lots and lots of dabs of the black just to dull that edge in. Then into your bolt thrower, and just tiny dinks of damage. And then hopefully as we wander around the model we're starting to get a little bit more realistic. We still look a bit too shiny with the metallic edges yet, but we're going to solve that shortly. And in the meantime, if we get a little bit of the red, mix in a bit of the basic skin tone that we used earlier, and just a little bit of the velvet red as well. And we can also just emphasise, really get rid of the paint on your brush, and we can just emphasise a few little dinks and scrapes here and there. And then finally, we've actually had those bits of metal exposed. I'm going to get some dirty down rust and just apply it around those edges. This stuff is absolutely fantastic, as you will see in a few seconds. And just where we've been getting those little breaks, just dab some around. And it just dulls them down a little bit, adds a little bit of extra wear on them. You could even run some of it into some of these areas that would collect some dirt, grime. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go around all the tiny little bolts on this thing, just catching those with a dab. And then what we will do is very similar to earlier, where we mix the shade colours, where we mixed dark shade with a little bit of red. We can get those and just drop those onto where we've just popped those washes, and it will leave a ring around them, and it will just accentuate them as well. Okay, so I'm going to leave that to dry. I'm going to work around the rest of the model and then come back and show you what we've achieved. So we've got the skin and we've got the red armour sections done. Reasonably happy with those. Now we need to come back and finish the rest, but I think I'll leave that for a second video. Well, I was hoping to have got more done, but unfortunately just time ran away with it. We got the skin done, we got the plate sections done and painted, and the battle damage done. Hopefully we'll finish all of it in the next video, including the basing. So I'm looking forward to getting it finished and doing the next video very, very shortly. Hopefully it's going to be before Christmas, but if I don't see you before, have a lovely Merry Christmas. And what do we say? Well, there is only one thing left to say. Are we painting minis yet? Hell yeah! I'll catch you in the next one.